Witness the armor of black, the unraised visor, the iron-clad fist that rules from the shadows. Yes, darkness is abroad, from the city of the damned to the hovels of the wretched. Mousillon is lost indeed, and if you seek to find it, traveler, you will find only death. MALLOBAUDE, also known as the Serpent or the Black Knight, was a mysterious figure who appointed himself Duke of Mousillon and later attempted to claim the crown of Bretonia, riding into war as a ferocious Blood Knight. None know for sure the true identity of the knight now known as MALLOBAUDE, although rumors persist that he is the bastard son of King Louis Leoncoeur himself. Whatever his origins, MALLOBAUDE was certainly once a dashing and heroic knight, one of the finest young lances in Bretonia. He was, and still certainly is, both a magnificent warrior and a man whose honor and principles were bound in iron. It is told that after setting off to fight in the Border Princes, returning as the only member of his war band left alive, MALLOBAUDE earned his spurs and was confirmed as a full Knight of the Realm. However, such was his devotion to the knightly code that he immediately renounced his lance and rode out as a questing knight, seeking the blessing of the lady and a revelation from the Grail about what purposes his life should serve. He rode out all across Bretonia, devoting himself to the life of denial and toil demanded of a questing knight. Again, he seemed content to allow rumors to fly among Mousillon's nobles about his deeds as a questing knight. It is said he rode through the Massif Orcal and cleansed whole valleys of the green skins, battled bat-winged harpies in the grey mountains, and stemmed the advance of an entire goblin tribe at Axebite Pass. Other tales have him rooting out a chaos cult among the foreign merchants in Longwy and hunting down the monstrous blue hag of the forest of Chalon. One of the most persistent stories relates how MALLOBAUDE, after long years of questing for the Grail, became weary of his hardships and finally came to rest at a Grail chapel. The Grail damsel welcomed him in, but MALLOBAUDE was grim-faced and angry. Why had the lady forsaken him? Had he not done enough for her? Why had the lady forsaken him? Had he not done enough for her? Had he not slain Bretonia's monsters, sought to help its innocents, and punish its wicked? Yet why had he seen no sign of the Grail, and received no message from the lady? He railed in anger that he should devote his life to the quest and yet gain nothing from it. The Grail damsel had counselled many questing knights, and she answered him as she had all those others. The quest for the Grail, she told MALLOBAUDE, is not a journey undertaken to gain recognition from the lady, or a trial to earn the right to drink from the Grail. The true quest is for the knight to reach this point, the point of despair, and then carry on with the quest in spite of it. This is the true test of a knight, not the strength of his sword arm, but the strength of his soul. Not whether he can slay a forest full of monsters, but whether he can come to understand that he may never sip from the Grail and yet still continue to seek it. MALLOBAUDE thought on this. If it was true, then surely all he had to do was to carry on, to pit himself against the most terrible threats and meet them with passion and valor, and eventually the lady would come to him as she had promised. With the dawn, he rode out from the Grail Chapel and did not rest until he came to the very place where his despair would be tested, to the land of despair itself, to Mousillon. There, he certainly found enough of it. It is almost certain it was MALLOBAUDE who rode out against a host of the undead who had gathered near the Orphan Hills and who delved into the caves beneath the ruined bridge at Point Résolu to bring the nefarious rat men to the sword. None can say what other adventures he had in the Lost Duchy. As he himself tells it, he eventually came to rest on the edge of the forest of Ardent. Through seeking beastmen and other monsters, he instead came across a foul, brackish creek. As he watched its grey-green sheen lifted and the clouds of flies lifted to reveal a clear, beautiful lake wreathed in chill mists, a hand reached up from the waters bearing a shining golden chalice, and MALLOBAUDE knew he had at last found the Grail. Drinking from it could have only two outcomes. If he had any taint of sin in his heart, the magic of the Grail would kill him instantly. If, however, he was pure as a true knight should be, then he would be given the blessing of the lady, never know fear again, and ride back into civilization as a hallowed Grail Knight. He took the Grail, confident his years of questing must have cleansed him of any taint. He drank of its waters, and when he was not struck dead, he realized that he must have passed the test, and that the blessing of the lady was upon him. And then he saw the truth. The Grail had no effect on him. MALLOBAUDE did not die, nor did he become a Grail Knight. Instead, he received a revelation about the Lady of the Lake, the knightly code, and all that is at the very heart of Bretonian chivalry. Somehow, instead of becoming a Grail Knight, he had glimpsed past the lady's magic and seen the truth behind her. Or perhaps some madness struck him and he saw a fevered hallucination brought about by his exposure to the misery of Mousillon. Whatever the case, MALLOBAUDE believed it to be the truth, and it was terrible indeed. Mousillon was once ruled by a just and even-handed ruler, yet no more. Now the land is blighted, forsaken by the light, and all but the most stalwart residents. Death stalks Mousillon, and they call him my lord. From Petrus Stavehard, an official scribe of the Holy Order of the Templars of Sigma. Only MALLOBAUDE's closest co-conspirators know what he saw when he drank from the Grail. It was devastating enough for him to cast aside all that was knightly and curse the name of the lady. He rode, desolate, back into Mousillon with everything he had ever believed in tatters, seeking only death in the land of despair. But he did not find death. Instead, his sorrow turned to anger, and his anger into hatred. He had been lied to since the day he was born, and worse, he had lived that lie. but he could do something about it. If he overthrew the crown of Bretonia and abolished the worship of the Lady of the Lake, he could put right the wrong that had been done to Bretonia. But to do that, he first needed to gather an army and challenge for a dukedom, so that he could eventually seek out the throne of Bretonia for himself. It was an insanely ambitious plan, one that required MALLOBAUDE to be the first man to usurp the throne of Bretonia. But the same dedication that had seen him seek out the Grail and quest on through his despair was now turned towards his crusade against the Lady of the Lake and the crown of Bretonia. His plan is in its early stages. He has explained his terrible vision to several of Mousillon's nobles, and many have joined with him. Some of them share his outrage at the lie that has been perpetrated, while others are simply bitter, wicked men who want revenge against Bretonia for making them outcasts. These nobles have pledged their resources to the first of MALLOBAUDE's objectives, a claim to the dukedom of Mousillon itself. Their armed forces are needed both to fend off a possible challenge from the king and to enable an armed expedition to reclaim the ducal palace. The expedition is imminent, and it will not be long before he strides into the halls where Maldred and Malfleur met their end. His plan relies on his creating an alliance of often wicked and treacherous men and women using only the force of his personality. Fortunately for him, he possesses a charisma and persuasiveness that is the equal of any true Grail Knight. Though the truth that he believes about Bretonia is outlandish and frankly difficult to believe, MALLOBAUDE states it with such conviction that many who have heard it have believed him completely. He is gracious and generous to his allies, and even offers enemy nobles a single chance to join him. He is also still an extremely honor-bound knight, and has never executed a fellow noble. Instead, he gives them a chance to survive through single combat with him. In truth, this is not much of a chance, as he is one of the most skillful warriors ever born in Bretonian chivalry. But the idea of slaughtering a nobleman like an animal is still unacceptable to MALLOBAUDE. He is, however, utterly ruthless at his core. He shows commoners and foreigners none of the comparative leniency he affords Bretonian nobles. He has had countless peasants, mercenaries, or foreign adventurers executed and worse. He also has such conviction in his cause that he is willing to send brave men, even nobles, to their certain deaths if it is the furtherance of his aims. Also, though MALLOBAUDE is bound by his own sense of honor, he has abandoned the knightly code completely, having openly refused the grace of the lady and the authority of the king. Such unknightly pursuits as employing mercenaries or black powder war machines hold no shame for him. Most sinisterly, MALLOBAUDE's devotion to his cause has even eclipsed his basic sense of right and wrong. It is said that the walking dead answer to his call, and that should the king invade Mousillon, the living will march alongside the dead in his army. Some of the nobles with whom MALLOBAUDE deals have the vilest reputations as necromancers, witches, and even blood-drinking fiends, and yet he courts them all, caring only whether they can help him in furthering his aims. He is rarely seen in Mousillon, and does not seem to have a single base of operations. Instead, he patronizes the courts of the nobles who support him, both helping them recruit and deploy their forces, and presumably checking upon them to ensure their loyalty. He wears full black armor, earning him the nickname of the Black Knight, and never raises his visor unless he is in the company of fellow noble conspirators. It is said he is a handsome but very intense man who seems as ageless and inscrutable as a true Grail Knight, and his deep, sonorous voice can convince a man of the most terrible things. His heraldry is a yellow serpent on a black field, and it is displayed proudly both on his own shield and barding and on that of the select band of knights who form his personal troops. This is the standard that many are certain will soon be flying on the walls of the barony. By the year 1539, or 2517 IC, rumors had spread throughout Bretonia of an accursed army gathering in Mousillon, led by a mysterious knight clad in black. MALLOBAUDE's army did not want for soldiers, as disgraced knights and vile cutthroats flocked to his banners. From among the most loyal and skillful of these ruthless warriors, he formed his personal retinue, the Knights of the Black Grail. Backed by an ever-growing army, MALLOBAUDE commandeered the ancient city of Mousillon and raised the banners of the Serpent above its walls. The Black Knight then proclaimed himself the rightful Duke of Mousillon.